if you run an MSP and you want somebody with technical background who can find business and close business, my question is, what the hell do they need you for?
Exactly. Exactly.
What are you doing? They should just go start a rival MSP and smoke you. Because the word you're looking for is not salesperson, it's entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who can take blank space and make money out of nothing, and who understands your whole product line. They should have 49% of your business.
Welcome to MSP Mindset. I'm your host, Damian Stevens. Have you ever wondered, can I sell and still sleep at night? Would you like to learn how to feel good and close deals as an MSP? Even more interesting, join me as I interview Brian Gillette. He's a guy that was an actor, turned into cold caller, turned into VP of sales at an MSP, and in less than 3 years took the MSP from $700K to $2 million recurring revenue. So if you want to learn how to not only grow your MSP, but to do it with empathy, do it in a way that you can feel good and it's a win-win, then you're not going to want to miss out on this conversation. Before you kind of became the rose to VP of sales and did all the other things we're going to talk about that you did and became so successful in those endeavors, where did you go that was a little, in my opinion, atypical?
Yeah, so around when I was 21, I moved from Oregon to Los Angeles to pursue a career in acting.
Yeah,
And
Oregon to LA already sounds like a big move, but then acting is also, entirely different.
Right. Yeah, it was a pretty big shift. It was a pretty major culture shock. Oregon is, I don't know if there's any Oregonians listening, but Oregon is a really different place. It's highly individualistic. It's highly opinionated and usually uneducated opinions, but everybody's incredibly aggressive about it. But it's also relatively community driven. And you move to LA, which is like not community at all. Everybody's totally segregated. Everybody's spread out. Everybody says things that they don't mean. It was like a pretty major shift. And I started acting. I mean, I was an actor when I was younger, and I kind of always knew I wanted to do something along those lines. But just finally somebody told me, hey, you should just really try it. And I did. So I moved to LA for a couple of years. And during that time, I think I had 10 jobs. I lost count around 10 in the 2.5 years I was just trying acting full time, which is really hard. It's a different type of rejection. Cold callers talk about rejection and I kind of smirk because getting rejected over the phone when you're just trying to sell a product is completely impersonal. The rejection has nothing to do with you. The rejection is all about the timing that you called or the product that you're trying to sell. When you're an actor and you're being rejected, it's like, hey, we loved you for the part, but you're not good looking enough. Thanks anyway.
Right, that's a different level.
They're literally rejecting you. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you, and sometimes it has everything to do with you. That's brutal, man. And it's also like you have to shape your whole world around these rare opportunities that are really hard to get, and then you get there and they don't care at all about you. So there's this mismatch of input and energy. Like you have to get shifts covered and drive an hour and a half to get somewhere and then look into a camera and be like, Dr. Pepper, heck yeah. And then they go, thanks for coming. And that was the whole thing. And you never hear back, right? And for you, they're like, oh, this could be my big break. And they had just had lunch. And so they were like, they forgot you even came in that day, So it's a really weird life. It's a really weird career. And, I had some very moderate, small successes, nothing that is noteworthy as an actor, but it was really satisfying. But I was selling along the way to kind of pay the bills. I was doing, on TaskRabbit, I found a way to cold call for a wholesale real estate company in Texas because I needed something I could do in the morning before I would go and start my day. So I'd make cold calls for this real estate company, just call random investors in Texas and be like, hey, do you want to buy this house? And I've never even seen the house, And I did that for a while. And, I had a traveling sales job where I would fly. They'd fly me out Friday night. I'd go to some random city for a weekend and do a sales event, and then fly back Sunday night so I could be back for my Monday morning auditions. So that was kind of sales and acting to me not even necessarily by like intentionally, but they sort of bled together into the same thing. A lot of the skills I was developing in both of them ended up serving me in the other.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you have to play a role either way, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And in fact, so I call it the sales mask, where people will play like everybody uses a specific voice when they talk to a receptionist at a hotel, right? When you walk into the hotel lobby, you're like, "Kids, shut up! I swear to God, kids." Yes, hello, checking in under Robertson, and you put on this new
Right.
character, right? Because you want them to like you. You want to present as normal. You don't want to bring any of your dysfunction or any of your mood. So you play a character. And it was interesting when you're an actor trying to learn how to play other characters, and then you observe other humans playing characters all the time in their everyday life. But then when it comes to sales, dude, I'd sit down at the sales floor, and everybody around me is playing a character. And I'm like, I wonder if this is why you all hate your jobs and nobody buys from you.
Right.
Because you're phoning this in. You're playing a version of yourself that you think people want to hear. And that actually was one of the really major moments that made me start to realize, like, oh, I think this is all wrong. I think we might be
What
doing
part of
this
that?
wrong. You know what I mean?
What part of that?
Well, if we have to act like another version of ourselves in order to present to a stranger, what we're telegraphing is that we believe the true version of ourselves is not good enough. So we have to create a better version of ourselves that is acceptable, professional enough, slick enough, likable enough, fill in the blank. So what everyone does is they have an insecurity or personal flaw that they don't like about themselves, and they try to overcorrect, and then they'll play this character. But sales already, there's so much stigma when you're against you when you're selling, because most people already believe that salespeople they're self-seeking, they have ulterior motives, right? Like, oh, they're just out to get me, they're trying to beat me, they're trying to trick me. And that is compounded by the fact that the person on the other end of the phone is putting on a fake voice. They're literally lying. Even if everything they're saying is true, the way they're saying it is false. So here we are, doubling down on this divide between salespeople and buyers, and it has nothing to do with the thousands of dollars worth of tactics that we've learned or all the books we've read. It's an internal issue. Does that make sense?
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, it's just, we don't want the world to know who we are or the mess of who we are. I knew a very successful VP of sales, and we were always coming into work at the same time, and I would ask him how he's doing. So I got to know him, and the answer was always super fantastic, super fantastic, super fantastic. And after like a couple of years, I finally was like, I don't believe you. Like, you know what I mean? Like this, I don't want to hear that. But he had risen to VP of sales and had, hundreds of people where it's just like, I'm always fantastic. Everything's fantastic. And that's not real. It's not authentic. So I know I want to dive deeper on that, but I want to step back and kind of give folks a feel for how the heck you went from actor to selling.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I asked myself that too. No, because I always had a hand in selling. As I said, I was always doing some of that. And then I kind of hit a point, 2015-ish, where I was like, I'm just going to put acting down for a little bit and see what happens. See if basically, like, if I still love it, I'll come back to it. And the real answer is acting started a journey for me where I realized, like, I think I probably need therapy. Because what I'm trying to do here is get people to like me. And it's costing me money. You know what I mean? It's costing me happiness. Because I'm willing to do whatever I need to do in order to feel a feeling I'm trying to get from this other person. And that was my journey, right? And so I laid it down for a while, started some kind of, my sort of 3-year journey of like, I always say that the best sales training I ever got was 3 years of therapy. Because I realized I'm putting on a character, And even though I am very good at playing the character and I'm very convincing and I'm a very persuasive person, I'm never going to actually achieve what I'm trying to achieve, which is feeling comfortable in my own skin while evangelizing about something I believe in to people
Mm-hmm.
who I don't know. It's always going to
Mm-hmm.
drain me one way or the other. So, I ended up just like, I needed to re-enter the world with a regular job, went to Starbucks, did that for 10 months. And the point of that Starbucks job for me was like, it was like acting detox,
Mm-hmm.
like, let me just go back and like see the same people every day, do something really well. And of course, like I learned a ton when I was at that job. Starbucks is an amazing company. I learned a lot of things that I still, implement in my own regular life and in my own business.
So tell me about, I want to get to how you became a VP of sales at an MSP, but I think there was a stop in between where you were working for a funding company.
That's right. I left Starbucks, got a job at a company selling working capital, and that was sort of my re-entry back into a full-time sales role. And $100 a day. There was a lot of inbound leads, but there was a lot of phone numbers to call too. It was like, that's where I learned how to use Salesforce. There's 20, 30 sales guys. I think there was 50 sales guys when I left. And, that was the first time I saw people making, they called it grown man money. But I saw a guy make 30 grand a month, in commission.
Wow.
Doing the exact same thing I was doing, same phone, same Salesforce, same product.
Wow.
And then there's this massive discrepancy of what some people aren't. Some people can't even do it and they get fired, and some people can. So, I'm cutting my teeth, making the dials. That's where I really learned how to hold my own cold calling. $100 a day is really good life training.
One thing I want to say that's interesting about you, in my opinion, Brian, I've made the $100 a day. And then I've hired people and coached people to make them, and I've interviewed people. And of course, are you willing to make it is generally the question. And every once in a while I have these people like, I love making cold calls. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to love making cold calls. But my point is, even the people that think they want to do it, avoid it. It's the worst part, right? That kind of thing. And so it's interesting. It's tough, in my opinion, right? It's one of, there's easier aspects to sales, maybe more technical or more nuanced, more skillful. But it's usually seen as where you get foot in the door, right? Is making cold calls. But the attrition rate is super high because people can't take it. I think it's really interesting that, the way you framed it is they're not judging you. Like when you're an actor, they were judging you. Now they're judging a product.
Yeah.
I think if you'd have told me that back when I was making 100 calls a day, it'd have made my life a lot better. Instead of going, I'm a failure, especially, like you mentioned, when there's other folks who are using the same phone and the same list and they're getting, 5 times the results or 10 times the results.
Yeah. There's a guy, in the same bullpen as you, making as much money as a surgeon, cold calling strangers.
Yeah.
And I think that really the actor journey is what set me free in the sales journey, was because I wasn't born inherently with thick skin. The truth is that I actually don't even really believe in thick skin. Like, I think it's the wrong way to think of it. I don't think we want to be resistant to rejection. We need to be resilient to rejection. And the difference between resistance and resilience is resistance holds its shape in response to pressure, but resilience bends out of shape but then comes back. So if somebody hurts your feelings, just be hurt, but then come back. If you're sad because you lost a sale, be sad and then come back. Don't super fantastic your way through it, because you'll break. You will eventually break. Or said another way, you will retreat further and further into that character in order to maintain, because you don't actually have the skills to emotionally cope with the job. So you're bullshitting it.
I love that.
So I realized if I can stay, for lack of a better word, if I can stay tender in this role, a regular human, that can keep me empathetic. I can keep listening. And then when somebody says something really cruel to me on the phone, I could just go, wow, that was a really cruel and uncalled for thing for them to say.
I love that because, first of all, let's change the way people think about salespeople. Because anybody that's tried to do it well, you're battling an uphill battle from the preconceived notions. And then I love the tender, right? I want to be real. I want to be myself. And using your thick skin analogy, I remember feeling like I had to build up a callus
Right.
so that I could have thicker skin and pretend like it didn't hurt and pretend that I didn't care when I really did care, when I was emotionally invested, whatever, when I was just like, how could I make 100 dials, today and yesterday and the day before and still have nothing to show for it. And, I got this one on the phone and then I thought I had him and I didn't, like the reality is that really was crushing. But I love being tender, staying there, because otherwise, I think if you develop that callus, then you may not look at the hard truth, which is you don't have the tools to deal with it.
And with the callus comes resentment. You will begin to resent the prospect.
Mm-hmm.
So the prospect, capital P prospect, becomes your villain, and you become the hero. And the sale is they're the thing you have to overcome in order for you to win. Enter what I call the adversarial sales complex. If we think we're losing because we call somebody who wasn't interested, that means we think we're winning when we call somebody who is interested, but that means that the prospect has to lose when we win. So we're trying to conquer this person instead of helping them.
Right.
So the callus, not only does it, in my mind, is it false strength. It's fake strength. It's cowardice, said more bluntly.
Yeah.
But it also ends up pivoting you to the wrong side of the table in a negotiation. Because if a prospect is the one who's supposed to be in the emotional state, in the child state, and we're supposed to be in the rational adult state who can shepherd them through the problem that they don't know how to solve into the land of euphoric resolution. That's our job. We're supposed to be guides, as Donald Miller would put it, right? We're the guide, the customer is the hero. We're Yoda, they're Luke. That's the job. And if you insist on being the hero, you shouldn't be in sales.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love that. If you insist on being the hero, you shouldn't be in sales. Make the customer the hero.
Because they are. Because their life is a movie about them, not about you, right? So best case, you want to be in a chapter where you're the person who gives them the unique insight that helps them then conquer their foe. That's your role in that movie,
Yeah.
And we oftentimes come in with, we make our product the hero, our company the hero. So we cold call and go, hey, listen, can I get a minute? I want to talk to you about it. Listen, I was born in a log cabin and my company's so great. And this is how I'm changing the universe. And this is how we're disrupting the industry. Like nobody cares. No, why should they care about you?
Yeah.
Unless you can help them.
Have you ever wondered if you could recover your backups? Let me ask a better question. Have you ever had a backup fail to recover? Have you ever lost data? Yeah, that's me. Here's what's crazy. 58% of recoveries fail to recover. So if you think it's just you, you couldn't be more wrong. What are we going to do about that? Well, you've got two options. Enter Servosity. What we do and what we exist to do is test your backups and manage them for you. We test every volume, every single day. We do weekly testing, monthly testing, and quarterly testing. And you can hand off the drudgery and babysitting of backups and the day-to-day management to our team that monitors your backups for you. It's time to level up your backup game. One way you can do that is visit servosity.com/learn more if you'd like to take the process that I've spent the last 18 years building and steal it and apply it to your MSP so that you can level up your backup game. Check out the link below in the description or visit servosity.com/learn more. So I want to go deeper at what we're talking about, but before I do, I kind of want to set everybody up with your personal story. I want to kind of help them understand the arc that I found interesting from, there's a lot of stops in between, but high level, right? Actor to selling, to support your acting habit, to, selling and being incredibly successful, right? Highest caller, setting records at this funding group. And then how the heck did you end up at an MSP? And also, right, if I understand, you were at this funding company, a cold caller, which is definitely the lowest person on the totem pole, to, you rose to be like a VP of sales at an MSP and help them grow faster than in my opinion, almost any MSP actually does grow.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it was serendipitous in some ways. Like, the true story is probably not as exciting as the bullets make it sound, but I was at the sales company, I was at the funding company, and I had my wife and I talked a lot about the job. And the truth was that I was not in love with the product I was selling. I understood its value to a specific person, but oftentimes I felt like the people who ended up buying it, I felt like didn't really, shouldn't have bought it. It was very expensive working capital. And oftentimes it ended up in this predatory cycle. Now, that wasn't my fault. That wasn't anybody's fault, but I just didn't, I feel like I could be having a more positive impact than selling this particular product. So I knew I wanted to get into tech. I was interested in potentially in SaaS. I really hate like SaaS bro sales culture, but I'm like, I know I want to make more money, basically. So I wrote on a piece of paper everything I wanted in a job. I've never told this story before, but everything I wanted. And it was like, I want to work from home. And this was 2017. So back then, everybody thought that was impossible. They were like, there's no way you could be productive from home. Right. So I said, I want to work from home. I said how much money I wanted to make. I wanted to work in tech. I wanted to be more or less autonomous. And I wanted to have salespeople under me that I could sort of manage, train, and support. So I just wrote that on a piece of paper and I stuck it to the outside of my fridge. And I would just say out loud every time I looked at it, I'm going to have this job. And I'm not kidding. 2 weeks later, I met the MSP I would work for. And it was a friend of my wife's who she had known from years before. And she just had one of those prophetic, premonitions of like, I wonder if you should talk to this guy. Texted him out of the blue. And he was like, yeah, my VP of sales just quit. So I called him, we talked for 45 minutes, and he was like, I can't really afford you yet, but let's keep talking. And then like a week later, he was like, actually, I just got to hire you right now. So we met at a Starbucks at like 6 a.m. on a Tuesday or something like that. And I told him, he's like, okay, how would you sell this product? And I explained to him my philosophy on sales, ECF, engage, consult, fulfill. And I drew him a funnel on a napkin. I'm like, this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm gonna create process for how we engage, how we consult, and how we fulfill. I didn't even know what an MSP was. He explained outsourced IT, all things IT. If it has a switch, we can manage it. We're very white glove. He said a lot of the same things that every MSP says. But I was like, okay, great. And what is VoIP? Right. Oh, well, it was this, and okay. And what is cloud actually? Literally just no product knowledge. So yeah, I started. I went in on the first day on a whiteboard. I wrote ECF on the whiteboard. I was like, hey, I'm gonna burn everything we've done down for sales. Take all your prices off the website. Fix this. Stop doing this. Stop saying this. This is how we say this now. And I just came in like Don Quixote style. Like, this is how it's happening. And because that's what they wanted me to do, right? They were like, we need process. So I started with one sales guy to sort of prove the concept. And he was actually an IT director who had a very tragic health issue, and he lost 90% of his site in a couple of months. He was 29 years old. So he couldn't do his IT job anymore. Because he was managing a network, 60 users, 20 servers. And so he was like, can I be useful somewhere? Can I learn how to sell?
Wow.
And this guy had zero sales experience, man. Like, literally zero.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. So I walked him through what was the beginning of now what is the Feel Good Close training. It was like the first thing we did is a word exercise, word association. I know this is a sidebar, but I used to do this with every live sales training. And I don't do it anymore because I feel like people see it coming now from me, but I would like word association. So I'll write a word on the whiteboard, and then they have 3 minutes stream of consciousness to write 1 to 3 word phrases that come to mind. And so for the first minute or two, they write what they think you want to hear. And then when they run out of ideas, they start writing what they really think. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, word association with salesperson. And it's like, never give up, high drive, slick, nice car, pushy. Oh, dishonest, self-seeking, greedy. And then you find all these things. So I would do that. I've done that every time I've ever done that. People look at the paper and they almost cry. because they realize they're carrying these toxic associations with the thing that they're trying to turn themselves into. So they're trying to make themselves a salesperson, but they don't even like salespeople. They associate all these terrible things with it.
Right.
And so if you don't heal from those perspectives, then your version of sales will just be overcorrecting from the things you're trying to avoid, which means your negative sales experiences are still dictating your sales behavior. It's just the antithesis of the sales behavior you're trying to hit, which means we end up being, instead of pushy, we end up being weak and limp, and there's no urgency and no follow-up because we're so afraid of being this thing that we despise.
Right.
So anyway, I started training him on that. He hit the phones $100 a day on his first Friday. So his fifth day, we booked a consultation. It was the following Thursday. We went in. We billed like $400 it was pull a cable. It was some random little project, but I just wanted him to get a win. So he made money in the first 2 weeks for us.
Wow.
And then I scaled it up, and I had 5 people, $100 a day, and it was off to the races.
I love the story though, right? Because a couple of things that stood out, right? I feel like everybody raises their children to tell, you need to tell the truth. You need to be a good person and tell the truth. Or, I mean, unless you're talking to a salesperson, then you can tell them a lie. Or if you are a salesperson, maybe. And then if you do get into sales, then you have this conflict because you're, the dishonest, the other part that they're carrying around. They feel like they need to, even if they're not outright lying, they're bending the truth. They're stretching when something will be available. They're just, they're carrying around this baggage, and to let that go and realize you don't have to do that is a huge gift to anybody that's doing that. And I know most of the audience here is owners of MSPs running their own, and they don't like the way they sell is like, oh, I don't sell like salespeople. I sell my way. And I think it's because you have this relationship with sales and salespeople that's toxic at best. And I love that you just happen to be able to have the gift of starting with that individual that couldn't manage a network anymore. So that's awesome. Super motivated, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was cool. And then he ended up, crushing it. He booked 4 to 8 on-site consultations a month at $100 a day, and I closed 57% of them.
That's crazy.
And we were just Jordan and Pippen. We just crushed and did it for 3 years. Got to $2 million in ARR or ARR about 3 years.
Yeah, so that's the other thing, guys. I want to get into the empathy and get into the parts I think that make this even more interesting. But if you're listening, right, no experience. So I think there's a couple things that I know. I was an MSP, and I was like, oh, you've got to be an MSP. You've got to be super technical to sell. You got to really understand the product line, and I think if you look at it, if you bring somebody in, you're looking for some of those. Well, I want like a sales guy, but they need to have like a, BS in computer science, or need to have worked in the tech field, or I'm going to bring them in and teach them, like put them at every vendor and teach them the entire product line. Why would we do that? Right. And so what I love about your story and what you did, Brian, you went in there with no knowledge. You didn't know what an MSP was, or cloud or VoIP or any of those things. And almost no MSP goes from 700K to 2 million in 3 years, let alone, if I understand right, there was no marketing budget, no events, right? It was you and a person. And if I understand it, if you weren't successful with that one, you weren't getting the second or third or fourth, right? You had to grow. You had to earn your right to hire, essentially.
Oh yeah. It was this really blows my mind how so are a lot of MSP owners your audience? Do you get a lot of salespeople, or is it mostly owners?
It's mostly, there could be this, but it's mostly, owners. And I say that it could be, there's sometimes there's a partner that is more sales driven. Sometimes there's a one that isn't, but, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments as you're, listening wherever you are. But, most of the ones I hear from, they are Some of them are small, some of them are large, but I would say more common, it's they hit the wall because they're the only salesperson. And I personally know so many. There's been some that just were in the same city as me, and they're like, "You built a team that made cold calls and did outreach and did that, and it worked, and you scaled it. Teach me." And I was like, you know, I don't know how to say this, but no, right? You just wanted like a silver bullet, and I can't
Right.
spend half an afternoon with you, and then you're just going to go become a magical VP of sales. And if I unpacked it, it was like, well, I want them to source the business and close it. I want them to do this. I want to, like completely unrealistic expectations. So I feel like that there are basically the dividing line where the folks that are fortunate enough to get to the point where they get to 8 to 12, employees, and the owner is the salesperson. And then there's this giant gap that most never get past because they don't hire a VP of sales, but they never even get one good salesperson. And I don't blame the salesperson. I think everything is set up generally for failure. Expectations, their CRM, the data, the same gentleman I was talking to, he has a very high operational maturity MSP that is millions and millions of revenue and growing and well regarded and referrals and all these things. And the same person said, I'm just going to hire them and they're just going to go to like business after hours. And, I don't know, they'll just get the yellow pages or I don't know, like the modern equivalent and make phone calls. There was no plan, no training, no support to walk anybody into.
Yeah. What you're like, if you run an MSP and you want somebody with technical background who can find business and close business, my question is, what the hell do they need you for?
Exactly. Exactly.
What are you doing? They should just go start a rival MSP and smoke you.
That's right. And they have, or they will. It was exactly.
Yeah, they probably already have. Because the word you're looking for is not salesperson, it's entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who can take blank space and make money out of nothing and who understands your whole product line. They should have 49% of your business. That's called a business development partner, right? So if you expect a salesperson to be successful, your job is to make the salesperson successful.
That's right.
That's your new full-time job. Equip them to be successful, right? Because if you knew how to do their job, you wouldn't have hired them, right? But you should treat your salespeople like your business and your retirement depends on them, because it does. But this front of house, back of house argument, right? That's a restaurant term from back in my actor days. Like the kitchen always blames the waiters for putting in the orders wrong and the waiters blame the kitchen for putting it out slow. It's like, you guys, no. We're trying to get dinner to a bunch of people fast. They paid a lot of money for it. It does not produce faster, better quality dinners for us to be blaming each other when a mistake happens. Your job is not to be right. Your job is to help someone. The end.
I love that.
So in an MSP, if you're hiring a salesperson, even if you've got a partner, they've got some points. They're on the cap table. Who's right is not important. What's important is you find more businesses who are in desperate need of your help, and you find an economical way to support them. That's the job.
That's right.
And if you're really a mission-driven MSP, then you should not be pointing fingers internally, because that's clearly a sign of insecurity and ego. And if you're the guy who's always pointing fingers and every time you're in a room, there's a mistake and you're pointing at someone, you're probably the problem.
I love that.
Right?
Somebody listening needed to hear that. Pay attention.
If my piece of advice that people hate hearing is, there's only one common denominator in every problem in your life. It's you.
I love that.
And that should be very empowering to you, because many of us feel powerless when there's something that we have no control over that's causing our demise. Like the market or inflation or saturation or Kaseya. We all blame somebody, right?
Right.
Dude, there's no city too saturated. You heard me. I'm going to go on the record. Okay, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I guarantee you if I joined an MSP right now in New York City, I'd have linear, positive, organic growth. It's just not such a thing as too saturated. It just isn't. Not in an industry that changes this fast. With a market, by the way, that's continuing to increase. not only because there's more and more businesses, but a higher portion of the SMB market is relying on MSPs than ever before, and they expect it to continue to increase. The market is growing. So just maintaining market share, you should be getting organic growth. Right?
Yeah.
The city is not your problem. Millennials are not your problem. Kaseya is not your problem.
Right.
Cyber insurance starting to offer free XDR tools is not your problem. I'm going to say something that's going to make me sound like a jerk. But I was on one of the big forums the other day, and of these MSPs, and I had been a while. I go on there and I post answers to people's sales questions pretty frequently. And great forum, I really like it. But I was reading all these posts, and the subjects lines, one of them was like throwing in the towel, and the other one was like, I've had enough. And I'm going in and reading these posts, and I remember one of them was a guy, I had met with him. He talked to me about joining my program. We talked about the budget, the price, and the time commit, and he was fine with all of that, or he acknowledged that he was fine with that. I showed him the presentation. I said, give me your honest feedback. He said, this sounds like what I'm looking for. You're teaching all the skills I don't have. But it was right around Christmas, so we scheduled a follow-up call. He ghosts me on the follow-up call. Hey, you around? Did you fall in? Whatever I said. No answer. Never spoke to me again. And now 4 months later, I'm throwing in the towel, talking about how hard it is to sell on this forum. And I'm sitting here thinking, why is everyone whining so bad about their business? It's like, guys, there are options. There are options. The thing is, they're all on the other side of a big old humble pie.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to eat that pie, you're not going to get any of those results. So the problem here is you, and you should be encouraged because you are the only thing you have any control over.
Yeah. I could whine about losing weight. I could whine about getting in shape. I could whine about not closing more deals.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference.
Exactly. Like there is a way out, and I don't mean to belittle how hard this industry is. So as I said, I know you could probably cut this together to make me sound like a villain, but it's not that. I'm incredibly empathetic for the journeys, the struggles of growing an MSP. And I don't mean to sound arrogant to say I'm not trying to sound like I'm bulletproof or anything like that.
Right.
But my point is be resilient. Feel the feelings and then snap back into place and go, okay, what do I need to do? Because feelings are facts. The fact that you felt feelings is a fact, right? It's okay. You're discouraged. That's what's happening right now. So right now you're deflated and you're discouraged, but don't now start pointing the finger at every other person around you and say, you're the reason I don't have what I want. Because you're never going to get what you want.
Yeah. If you're waiting on other people to change for you. You're going to wait
the
forever.
truth is you should just go get a job as a CTO. You'd probably make more money and be a lot happier.
Yeah. I love that. So tell me about your position on empathy, right? In sales, right? You're used to that. It's just not what most people think. And when we talked a little earlier, it's one thing I loved, is don't be the average salesperson. Not only the things we were just talking about, take responsibility, but empathy. And I think most people, empathy and sales don't go together, right? You're playing a role. You're super fantastic. Well, how do you see empathy fitting in?
True empathy comes on the other side of a lot of inner work, I think there's a certain emotional intelligence that will really, really serve you in business in general, but especially in sales. And if emotional intelligence has always been sort of something that you avoid, it wouldn't surprise me if you have a hard time converting cold leads. Anybody can close a referral, by the way. Closing 9 out of 10 of your inbound referrals is not impressive. That's industry standard. That just means you have a brick and mortar.
Right.
That's not sales. That's order taking, and I'm happy for you, but that's not sales. That does not mean you know how to sell.
Right.
It means you know how to take orders from people who are coming to you on a silver platter. But empathy in business is about actually understanding and valuing another person's needs. even at times to the detriment of your own personal gain. So finding the no is a really important pillar of the Feel Good close. If somebody's not a good fit, we want to find out right away and tell them as early as possible.
But Brian, that goes against all the normal crappy sales training, right? Get them
the
to
normal
yes.
sales training is talk them into being a yes.
That's
right? And create the need. Like creating need is a classic old school Carnegie or Sandler like idea. Walk up to somebody's door and say, "Excuse me, ma'am, have you ever experienced this?" And you create the need, and then you fill the need, and then you place the order. That is a pre-internet idea, because you are not creating need for somebody who has access to the World Wide Web. They know what they need. They don't understand the nuances of what the need is. You know what I mean? But they don't understand how managed services actually are delivered, but they know if they need you or they don't need you. So finding the no is about, okay, do you have, there's, budget, authority, need, and timing, or whatever your qualifiers are. Like, are you actually in a position to purchase and invest in a partnership with somebody like me? But also, is the thing I do going to help you achieve the thing you're trying to achieve? That's a yes or no question for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not.
Yeah. That's the truth, right? It's the inconvenient truth. But
it's an inconvenient truth.
Yeah.
You'll make way more money in your career by selling to the right fits and letting the wrong fits walk away. Plus, you'll feel a lot better about it. But finding the no also can be overcorrected. And this I see a lot of rhetoric as well on the MSP forums is people say, like, present price on the first call, and if they think it's too expensive, they're not the right customer.
Right.
It's like, no, that is you abdicating your role as a salesperson. Of course they think it's too expensive. They don't even know what it is. Right?
Now you're speaking my language. As an MSP, that's what I did. And only few don't do this, right? I call it show up and throw up. There's probably some other acronym, but you just spew stuff like, in the backup and DR industry. Yeah, there's immutability. Yeah, we can do version this and that. Yeah, we can test daily, weekly, month. But I literally talked to an MSP recently. He's like, I went and told the prospect about immutability. I'm like, all they heard was flux capacitor. Like, it makes no sense to them. And even if they know what that term means, how does that apply? How does that actually make a difference in their world or in their life? You couldn't have done worse if you tried. And I think I told him something like that, which he was quite shocked. But yeah, why is it that we always show up and just feel like we've got to deliver this jargon and, XDR this and MDR that, and you need super advanced next gen something with a, DR in it or whatever it is. And why didn't they buy it?
And everybody says, this is what's so fascinating about this point, because everybody says we're the jargon-free IT company, because they all know this talk track that we're on right now. Everybody knows it. Don't be too jargony. That was like revolutionary in 2010, right? Like, oh, what if we stopped being jargony? So now everybody says we're not the jargony company. But then what happens is they get on a sales call. The prospect is sitting there looking at them. This well of anxiety starts bubbling inside of them because they have no freaking clue what to say or do. So you go to the groove that's the most worn in your brain, which is your technical expertise. So you start filling airspace with that information. And it's because you had no plan. So you go in saying, I'm not going to be jargony, but then all of a sudden, you might even, and somebody listening has probably done this, all of a sudden you hear yourself talking and you go, I've been talking for 4 minutes. And I don't even remember the question.
Bad sign.
What I would call, what's missing oftentimes is what I would call an urgency mechanism. So when you're trying to create a sale, when you're structuring a deal with someone, we need to figure out what's the timing, is there urgency? And if there is or isn't, if there's a pain, we need to put an urgency underneath the pain. Now, the default one is FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? Like, if you don't buy from me right now, you're going to get hacked and everybody's going to die. That's essentially what most of you are doing. And you tell me that you're not, but you are. You call it education, but it's FUD. Many people say, I'm not going to be this slimy, fear-based salesperson, but then they end up doing it anyway because they have no urgency mechanism. Yeah. Or they overcorrect, as we said before. They so desperately don't want to be a FUD salesperson that they have no urgency mechanism. So they just go, well, listen, the whole point of this is just to get to know each other.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. You're lying.
Yeah.
You're not just meeting random strangers. This is not a platonic date. The whole point of this is to make a sale. So just stop lying and be selling.
I love that.
Just sell. Like there's a whole, I'm not going to say the name, but there's a big sales philosophy out there where they set up first time appointments. And the first time appointments is all about getting on the phone with a CEO of an MSP. And so-and-so's been in the industry 25 years and they've got lots of insights for you. And then they just talk and talk and talk and data dump about all their crap. And then they leave thinking, wow, what a great conversation. And they do that for that same person for 2 years before they buy anything because there's no urgency mechanism. Well, you mentioned the word empathy earlier. My relationship with empathy is I figured out how to make empathy my urgency mechanism.
So tell me how we do that. Now you're speaking my language.
Well, instead of saying, so let's say I'm on a call with a prospect and they say, well, we need an IT company. And I go, okay, well, tell me what you mean by that. Why do you need an IT company? Well, because we had one before. We had some contract, whatever. We didn't agree on a couple of things, so we let that service lapse. That was a few months ago. We can still call them if we need them, but as of right now, we're not technically being managed. Now, the FUD salesperson is going to go through the impact funnel and say, what is that costing your business? Oh my God, what a stupid question.
Right.
Instead, I'm going to say something like, that sounds frustrating. That's it. Because I'm putting myself in their shoes going, oh my God, so you had a partner and you didn't agree on terms? What do you mean?
Yeah.
And now you're not being managed at all? Yeah, okay. It sounds like obviously there was some frustration in there. Yeah. So, I mean, what's the plan? And I'm just putting myself in their shoes. What are they trying to achieve? And if they go, well, I don't really have a plan and blah, 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 we've got time, I'm just meeting with a few people. And we can ask some clarifying questions like, okay, so just so I'm clear, if this were to happen, how would you respond? Or what's an ideal situation that you guys are trying to get in your partnership? But if someone feels seen, they want to continue their relationship with you. Mm-hmm. If someone feels understood, they're more likely to keep talking. If you're trying to use FUD to extract insights from someone, you're going to get insights that are filtered through what I call the buyer's process. In short, if you're trying to extract information from them, they're going to give you lies because they feel you extracting. But there's two types of relationships, extractive and collaborative. That's it. An extractive relationship, the analogy I use is like a mine. You buy a plot of land and you start taking resources from it. And eventually all the resources are gone. What's left is a hollow shell. And then you have to go buy another plot of land to get more value. A collaborative relationship is like a farm. You plant things on it and nurture those seeds and resource those seeds. And eventually you'll get a harvest which is exponentially greater than all the efforts you had to put into it. Because you were willing to take the time to collaborate. And the land is worth more than it was before you got it. But if you're extracting from people, you have to keep going from person to person. You get tons of churn, tons of FUD. Yeah, you make really high closing rates and you sell a bunch of big onboarding projects and you trick them into 400 a seat. But now what? Yeah. Now you have to keep them afraid to keep the relationship alive,
Yeah. There's no good MSP that I've met that wants that, right? And I think that's the struggle. What you said earlier really hit home where you overcorrect. Like they're not, most people, and I think in the MSP aren't natural at sales. And I think most of us stepping outside of MSP, you go, do you want a sales guy to call you? The answer is no. Like a sales guy? No, that sounds horrible. Like sales guys are bad, right? So we have this head trash telling us we don't want to be, act, smell like a salesperson, and then we're all of a sudden in it. And so then you overcorrect, like you said. Then I can't tell you people like, I go to business after hours and I just get to know people. It's all about building the relationships. Or like you said, there are some that they're like, well, we close. When I know you're not growing is when you tell me your close rate on referrals.
That's right.
Because it's super high, which is great, but you're getting like a few a year. There's nothing really going on. And so my point is, I think this is where we want to get. We want to be who we are. At least I'll speak for myself. I want to be me. I just want to have a candid conversation. Many times that means it's not the right fit. It's not the right time. It's not the right season.
That's right.
The faster we both figure that out, the better, in a good way. And you have to show up. You have to be invested. You have to ask questions. Sometimes that means you still get your feelings hurt. You still are tender. But this is how I want to. And I think most MSPs, they want to do this because this is going to lead to a relationship, like your analogy, a farm, where they're going to trust you. They're going to call you. They're going to talk. They're going to be open to talking about things. And that's what most of the good MSPs, that's what they want. And if you force it down their throat, even if you do trick them into winning a deal at 400 a seat or whatever the metric is for you, that's very short-term thinking.
You're thinking, what can I take to get what I want? And you didn't know you were thinking that. You wouldn't have said it. You wouldn't have articulated it that way. Mm-hmm. But that is actually the spirit in which you are growing your business. So that's why, all of this we're talking about is why I developed something and called it the Feel Good Close. Because if sales doesn't feel good to both the buyer and the seller, you're doing it wrong.
I love that.
With all the nuances that, to your point, nobody wants to hear from a salesperson. But the reason is that a salesperson's true job is to nobly and empathetically offer someone the opportunity to face a problem that they're currently avoiding thinking about. Mm-hmm. A problem that they deep down know they have, but they don't feel the strength, the courage, the energy to face it and resolve it.
Well, let me make this analogy, see if you agree or not, Brian. People perceive they don't want to talk to the salesperson. But you put them with the engineers, right? And maybe they don't want to speak acronyms and all of that, but all of a sudden they let their guard down, right? They'll just tell them. They'll tell the things. And that's what I've noticed, right? If your title even says sales, they're kind of more guarded. But when your title is, technical support or engineer or this or that, project management, any of those things, it's like, oh, well, here's my problems. Here's what I need to get solved. Because, and my assumption is there's some trust there that they're actually not trying to hit a number, talk me into something, upsell me, cross-sell me, whatever it is. These are the people that actually do the things. I kind of think like, you go to your doctor, you tell them what's wrong, whatever they tell you, hopefully you take action, you take that pill, you do whatever they tell you. And I feel like that's similar when they are talking to the engineer or the project manager or somebody on that side. They will tell them truth. And there's a candid conversation. So why do we create these fake walls and fake personas where we're not who we are? We're not really who we are. They're not really who they are.
Yeah.
Why can't we, if I had a pattern after it, why can't I sell more like and the other thing is without knowing it, some of my technical support engineers are the best salespeople, and they're not commissioned or anything like that. I just mean that they talk, they ask questions, they diagnose, and sometimes they're like, this other thing that we have, might suit you better. Oh yeah, I'll have somebody else give you the pricing. They're not even trying, but there's so many things like that just happen organically because they're not motivated in that way. They're just motivated in how can I help you?
Right. So I completely agree. Oftentimes, here's the context, though, I think, to set up this comparison, because when they're talking to an engineer or an internal person, that means usually a relationship's already established of some kind, right? So what's selling, here's what selling actually is. Selling is not getting a deal done. The craft of sales is navigating a new or budding relationship where everyone has secret, conflicting motives, and then aligning them all into a singular agreement where everyone wins. That is selling, which means our job is to manage psychology of people who are coming in with preconceptions about everyone else in the room. Everyone is coming in already thinking of the other party as the villain. The buyer comes in and goes, hey, whatever they say, don't give them our budget. Mm-hmm. Don't tell them about this thing. And for God's sake, don't tell him Alan's about to quit.
Yep. Yep.
And the sales guy goes, don't give him the price. Don't tell him about the 36-month agreement yet until you've twisted the knife and found the pain. And for God's sake, don't tell him we had an outage last month.
That's right. That sounds exactly like the MSP sales process.
And so a salesperson's true job is to be a conductor of all these feelings, thoughts, preconceptions, and needs. There's a solution in the room and a product in the room, but they're afraid of each other. So our job is to create an opportunity where everybody can, piece by piece, card by card, step by step, lay down their guards enough to give an accurate representation of the needs, so that then we can then decide if a deal can be structured. That's my job, right? My job is not to keep their servers running. This is not my job. That's the technician's job. So to say that an engineer is oftentimes the best salesperson, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I want to say to the MSP listening, that is not sales, that's order taking. Yeah. Because what you're forgetting is you've already established enough of a trust and a preconception that they're even willing to talk to your freaking engineer.
That's right.
That they're even willing to set up any of this is because the salesperson forged that first.
Yes.
You see what I mean? Like, the salesperson has to plow brand new ground and then plant seeds and water. And then the engineers come in and just water and pick the flowers. And they go, oh, great, I made a sale. You didn't make a sale. You solved the problem for a relationship that was already set up for that. Mm-hmm. So that's a salesperson's job. And that's why I firmly believe sales is an inherently noble profession. You are helping people face fears that they're afraid of facing and getting them to resolve them. You're getting them to take action. I've been called a sales therapist many times in my career because we have to get them to realize, hey, you guys have no backups. You have no plan. Your entire business is built around this system that you don't even understand. And you haven't had a good MSP in 3 years. Your MSP is terrible. But the reason your MSP is terrible is that you keep hiring the cheapest MSP. This is your third time in a row. And somebody has to help you understand that you can't think of IT in the same way anymore. So now this problem of their perception of value of IT in general, that's the problem. The downtime isn't the problem. The customer service isn't the problem. The problem is the buyer. They are their own problem. I have to therapeutically get them to face their own bad habit. Do you understand what I mean?
I love that. Yeah.
That's my job. Those are the questions I have to ask. That is my craft. That is why IT people who are likable can't just become a salesperson. It is a full craft. It's a full trade that you have to learn how to do. Just like a smart guy who loves video games is not inherently an IT guy.
That's right.
Those are traits that common IT guys have, but they had to learn the trade, right? Get the certifications, get trained, learn the tools. That's another thing we haven't even talked about. It's like back to our thing we talked earlier when an MSP owner says, I'm going to go look, she's super likable, she's charming, she's sold before, she's going to kill it. Here's a phone book. Or, I don't think they don't make phone books anymore.
Yeah.
Here's the internet, whatever. I got a 2-month trial to Seamless. Go for it. Okay, but where is she going to keep her information? Where's the list of people she's going to call? How do you expect her to communicate your value? How have you productized? Who's your product made for? What does your product help people achieve? That's like hiring a smart person, putting them at a desk and say, you're a technician now, support my customers. But you didn't give them a PSA. You didn't give them a knowledge base. You didn't give them an email address.
I'm only laughing because that's exactly what they do to sales, right? And that you would never do that without an RMM, without some knowledge base, without some training. And people generally, if they hire entry level on the tech side, they expect a lot longer learning curve, leaning on that knowledge base, spending time with the senior tech. So why is it that we expect to hire a junior salesperson with no other team? No equivalent of an RMM, no CRM, no data, no anything, and just say, go. You're going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's because I think it's a lot of reasons. It's because the IT owner understands the IT journey. They see themselves in the younger engineers. They want to help those people because they know what they oftentimes didn't have those resources, blah, blah, blah. They feel I'm sorry to say they feel entitled to immediate results from a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the stigmas that salespeople have. They don't have stigma against just their prospects. Salespeople are stigmatized by their bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, you're selfish for being a salesperson. You're greedy. I'm mad that you're going to make more money than my engineers. And also, go find me customers.
Yeah.
It's so weird, right? But because they don't understand what really goes into sales, this is part of my job, why I'm doing the interviews like these. MSP owners, I just want you to realize this person is entrepreneurial in spirit, and they're willing to be a performance-based employee. That means they're willing to say, if I do a bad job for you, you can pay me less.
Mm-hmm.
That's why sales is inherently noble. And they're willing to do it for you. They're willing to grow your business. They could be outgrowing their own business, but they're growing your business.
The least
That's
you could do
amazing.
is invest in their success, which is your success, right?
That's all they're asking for is, can I have some tools? I'm going to go build your future retirement home. Can I have a hammer? That's what they're saying. And you're saying, no, that's your job. By God, you're supposed to come up with that. That's why I hired you for.
Yeah.
You have to equip them, train them, tool them, educate them, motivate them, support them. That's your new full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
That's what being a leader is, right?
Yeah.
But we don't do any of those things. So if you've got a salesperson who's underperforming, I don't want you to look at them. I want you to look in the mirror first. Leaders should always look in the mirror first when they want to find blame.
That's right.
And just ask yourself, what part did I play in this? And if you've had multiple sales hires who were all unsuccessful, the problem was probably you.
Absolutely. Especially when there's multiple, right? It's not 100% in sales hires if you have a good process and you've got somebody to shadow and just the right training and environment. But when you're going through them left and right, it's not the people, it's you.
No,
So
that's right.
So that's how you bring empathy into the feel good close as part of it. What's one of the biggest misconceptions that MSPs have about selling?
So first of all, one of the biggest misconceptions is, we kind of talked about it already. Oftentimes people say, if I hire the person, I'll get the results. Another one is, if I buy the tools, I'll get the results.
Mm-hmm.
I just met an MSP 3 days ago who was like, I bought Zoom Info, logged into it, and realized we are nowhere near ready to use this.
Yep.
And then he called me because he's like, dude, I'm invested in the tool. And it's, I don't know, 20, 40 grand probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
And realized, oh, what I didn't need was a tool. I needed something else.
Yeah.
I needed system, people, and tool. But another big misconception is that people feel entitled to business because they have expertise in their craft.
I love that one.
MSP owners feel entitled to running a successful MSP because they're a good IT guy. You are not entitled to customers.
Mm-hmm.
Business is not a meritocracy.
Right.
The best people don't win. Right?
That's the cold hard truth.
That's the cold hard truth. And now I do have a generally optimistic paradigm which says if you work your ass off and do the right thing long enough and you stay humble so that you continue to grow, you will be successful in life.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes the humility piece is missing because we stopped learning in 2006 when we were at the peak of our career, and now all of our information is outdated because we refuse to remain a student.
Yeah.
Right? But IT guys IT people are usually students. They like to learn. That's what usually brought them in. So in an industry that evolves as fast as this one, that's not usually the issue. But you're not entitled to growing a business. You're not entitled to being a successful CEO. And being a great IT person does not mean you're going to be a good CEO.
No.
That's another big misconception, is that the CEO should be the smartest technical person in the room. That's not true. If you insist on being the smartest technical person, and in other words, you refuse to hire people smarter than you should hire a CEO and you should be the CTO.
Yep.
And just go do what you want to do. But otherwise, you need to hire people better than you, or else you will remain the bottleneck of your business's success.
Yeah. It's not about you. It's not about the ego. Bring it back to the humility you mentioned earlier. What's one of the commonly accepted? What's something commonly accepted that's a piece of advice? How to do sales? How to do it that you just couldn't disagree with more?
The advice is if you share value correctly, you won't get pushback on price.
That's a good one.
People say the word value way too much. It's getting preposterous. If you ever say the word share, I'd like to share value, I want you to slap yourself in the face.
I love that.
Because telling someone you're going to share value is like telling someone you're about to say something funny. That's what you're doing, right?
Right. That's
Because first of all, terrible setup for a joke.
Right. No comedian
Right?
ever leads with that, right? Hang
No,
on,
no
guys. This is
comedian
the
goes,
best one.
Yeah, this is the killer. You guys get ready, buckle up.
Yeah.
Because then they cross their arms and they go, I'll be the judge of that, wise guy.
Uh-huh.
Because you just told them how they feel.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's the opposite of empathy.
That is. I'm laughing because it's just a perfect analogy. Like I see so many people doing it.
And value is in the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. It's like telling someone, I am beautiful, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. They get to decide if they think you're beautiful. All I get to decide is if I think I'm beautiful. So if I say, I think I'm beautiful, that's different than me saying, you think I'm beautiful.
Right.
So telling someone, hey, I'd like to share value with you is pointless. Instead, just say something valuable and they'll decide if they find you valuable. But present your value. But value is in the eye of the beholder. So rather than saying, here's my value proposition, it's just a ridiculous thing to say out loud. Value proposition is a theoretical term, okay? Mm-hmm. It's a term from a business school where we say, what are we bringing? Essentially, what does the market need and how do we resolve it? I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. But what I'm saying is you should never lead by saying, hey, we're an IT company. Our value prop is that blank.
No.
You sound like you're treating them like command line and you're entering executables and expecting them to respond. But that's not how humans are.
Right.
So instead, value should be question-based. We should be asking them, what are you looking for in an IT company? Not, this is what you should look for in an IT company.
I love that.
Same with differentiation, exact same thing. Differentiator, the biggest differentiator when you're on a sales call is you're talking to them right now. You're the only MSP currently talking to them in this moment. There's your freaking differentiator.
Yeah.
So, right?
Take advantage. Ask good questions.
So don't say the thing that makes us different is like, why do you even want to be different? Mm-hmm. You don't even know that they want different.
Right.
You don't know what they want because you won't shut up and ask them a question.
Yes, exactly. Well, I feel like I could do this forever, and I want to be respectful of your time, Brian. This is really awesome. How can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you, Feel Good MSP? How should they reach out? How can they get connected? We'll make sure to put the links in, but tell everybody how to connect with you.
Yeah, probably the best thing is to follow me on LinkedIn. You know, I post like training and helpful information every day. That would probably be the best way. But if you want to learn more about what we're doing specifically and how we're building our sales process development membership, that would be feelgoodmsp.com. All right. We do live events, at least one live event a month, feelgoodmsp.com/workshop, or you can go to the events tab on our main menu and just find our upcoming workshops or upcoming webinars or whatever. But I would say LinkedIn or feelgoodmsp.com would be the best place.
Yeah. Look for the notes, guys. This is your opportunity to take advantage of what Brian Gillette is offering. So don't miss. If any of this resonated, don't sit there. Take action. You can have empathy. You can change the view of sales to a noble profession, to use your wording there, Brian. So I love it. That's how I viewed things. That's why we hit it off so well when we talked initially. Thank you for being on MSP Mindset, Brian. And make sure you guys reach out and take advantage of his offer.
Yeah, thanks, Damien. This has been really cool.